Analogies. Let's talk about what is an analogy. An analogy is like a puzzle or a word problem. These you will often see on standardized tests such as an ACT, the SAT, maybe even your NISA reading test that you'll take later this year. An analogy is made up of two word pairs. For example, graceful, clumsy, late, blank. Your goal is to find the word that completes that second pair. The words may seem completely different and unrelated, but they are logically related, and your goal is to find that relationship. So again, both pairs of words will have the same kind of relationship. Graceful, clumsy, late, blank. To solve the analogy, you need to start by reading analogies just like this. Graceful is to clumsy as late is to blank. Ask yourself, what is the relationship between graceful and clumsy? Well, if you think about it, graceful and clumsy are antonyms. They mean the opposite of each other. So that second pair of words must also be antonyms. So what's the antonym of late? That's right, it's early. So graceful is to clumsy as late is to early. You've now solved your first analogy. We're now going to learn the many different types of analogies. Make sure to pay close attention to the relationship of each of the different analogies. The first analogy is type. So for example, a golden retriever is a type of dog. Salmon is a type of what? Let's start by reading the analogy correctly. Golden retriever is to dog as salmon is to blank. What type does salmon fall into? That's right, fish. So golden retriever is to dog as salmon is to fish. Now we have tool to worker. So we have many different jobs and tasks, and we all use different tools. So a writer uses a pen as their tool. What worker would use a voice as their tool? Let's read the analogy. Pen is to writer as voice is to blank. Who uses their voice as a tool? That's right, it'd be a singer. So pen is to writer as voice is to singer. Now we have action to object. So we're going to find the action that an object makes or does. Airplanes fly. That's their action. We now need to think of what object does the action of driving. So fly is to airplane as drive is to blank. What drives? Cars drive. So now we have fly is to airplane as drive is to car. Now we have synonyms. Again, synonyms are two words that have the same meaning. So happy is to joyful as sad is to blank. What's another word that has the same meaning as sad? Let's try this. Happy is to joyful as sad is to depressed. So happy and joyful are synonyms, and sad and depressed are synonyms. The opposite of a synonym is an antonym. Again, antonyms mean the opposite. So two words that have the opposite meaning of each other. Inflation is the opposite of deflation. And frail is the opposite of what? So inflation is to deflation as frail is to blank. What's the opposite of frail? Strong. So inflation is to deflation as frail is to strong. Next we have characteristics. Characteristics would be words that are commonly used to describe a person, place, or thing. So a word that commonly is used to describe tropical would be hot. What would be a word that we use to describe polar? You might think cold, freezing, ice, but let's look again at that first word pair, tropical and hot. Now we have polar. What is something that would match the word hot, but for polar? That's right, cold. So tropical is to hot as polar is to cold. Now we have product and worker. So each worker produces a product. So a poet produces a poem. A baker produces what? This could be many different things. However, we use the most common. So a poet is to poem as baker is to pie. If you had put something down like bread or rolls, that would be acceptable as well. Now we have part to whole. So you have to think of the whole thing. So maybe a whole pizza or a whole hand or a whole job, and think what would be the part of that. So we have our hand is a whole object and our fingers are different parts of that. So finger is to hand as petal is to flower. Flower is the whole object and a petal is a part of that flower. Next we have minute is to hour as ounce is to pound. So a minute is just part of an hour and an ounce is just part of a pound. The next one's a little weird. It's degree of. So this is kind of like the amount of something that is happening. So a mist is a tiny little bit of air and vapor, where fog is going to be a heavier degree of mist. So a drizzle is a tiny little amount of rain. What would be the big part of drizzle? That'd be rainstorm. So mist is to fog as drizzle is to rainstorm. So again, mist is a little bit of fog and drizzle is a little bit of rainstorm. So that we have the degrees of those things. Now we have item to purpose. So each item has a purpose. For example, a knife's purpose is to cut. A ruler's purpose is to, that's right, measure. So knife is to cut as ruler is to measure. A fork's purpose is to eat. A shovel's purpose is to, that's right, dig. So a fork is to eat, a shovel is to dig. Let's practice. We're going to read each analogy. There's 12 of them. You're going to decide what pair completes the analogy. Write down the entire analogy in the full, complete form. Number 1. Growl is to hostility as A. Smell is to nose. B. Squeak is to sound. C. Whinny is to horse. D. Sigh is to relief. E. Fear is to braver. Number 2. Child is to human as A. Bird is to robin. B. Dog is to pet. C. Snake is to slither. D. Kitten is to cat. E. Cow is to milk. Number 3. Tooth is to orthodontist as A. Surgeon is to doctor. B. Cardiologist is to heart. C. Tree is to arborist. D. Gardener is to plant. E. Petal is to botanist. Number 4. Breakfast is to dinner as A. Lark is to nightingale. B. Stone is to wood. C. Tent is to teepee. D. Radar is to sonar. E. Realism is to rationalism. Number 5. Wax is to candle as A. String is to kite. B. Ink is to pen. C. Liquid is to cup. D. Paper is to pulp. E. Clay is to pot. Number 6. Student is to dormitory as A. Curtain is to stage. B. Prisoner is to jail. C. Alphabet is to letter. D. Shirt is to clothing. E. Skull is to brain. Number 7. Banana is to peel as A. Ventricle is to heart. B. Door is to knob. C. Bark is to tree. D. Orange is to rind. E. Section is to orange. Number 8. Ossify is to bone as A. Chew is to pulp. B. Interrate is to cud. C. Fossilize is to stone. D. Cake is to flour. E. Whisper is to murmur. Number 9. Sanguine is to cheerful as A. Destitute is to poor. B. Confident is to presumptuous. C. Obscure is to clear. D. Brilliant is to valedictory. E. Pallid is to ebullient. Number 10. Boat is to wake as A. Path is to trail. B. Thought is to rumination. C. Inspiration is to muse. D. Foot is to track. E. Railroad is to train. Number 11. Wait is to lurk as A. Prowl is to slink. B. Expect is to anticipate. C. Service is to repair. D. Move is to skulk. And E. Trot is to canter. Number 12. Locker is to storage as A. Telephone is to communication. B. Wallet is to cash. C. Pencil is to paper. D. Lake is to moisture. Now, some of those might have been very difficult for you. If they were, go back. Use a dictionary. Look up some of the words that might have been difficult. Talk to a friend. Maybe they know what certain words mean. Again, don't copy, but you can talk to each other and think about the connection between the words. Also, please put a circle next to your name at the top of your page of notes.